Tree, I think we need to unmute.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon for everyone joining us for how to ace AI interview questions. And I'm super excited about this topic because there's so much of chit chatter on LinkedIn. A lot of people I speak with would say, hey, I've gone through an AI interview. The bot was asking me questions, or I had this fill out form that AI was asking me to fill out. So right away, what we want to do is to get started with what kind of AI questions are out there, and then also what kind of AI systems that employers are using. We'll discuss that in a split second here. And I would like to introduce our guest here today, Hazy Pereira, who is one of my colleagues here at the Job Helpers. She has had over 15 plus years in management and also have been doing a lot of interview coaching for our existing customers. So she has a lot of in-depth of an understanding of what questions you can get in an AI interview setting, or if it's more of a hybrid situation. We'll be able to address both of those scenarios, or maybe they're still traditional. They're still asking you questions, but maybe they have an AI system on the back end where they would input all those answers, or maybe get it on a recording and then feed it into an AI system to see who is the best candidate or top candidate. So in today's session, I would like to ask one question up front. If you're listening in, if you're watching this LinkedIn Live, fill out an answer for me for the question: how many of you, or have you gone through an AI interview? Have you gone through an AI interview? I would like to get some answers from you, so feel free to drop in a message on your LinkedIn comment section, and we'll be able to kind of see how many of you have gotten AI interviews, how many of you have faced interviews that AI is purely doing those sessions. So to get started, let's talk about myself. And if you don't know me, or if you have interacted with me, or if you're on my LinkedIn profile but never have talked to me, my name is Chewy Senanayake, and I'm the CEO and the founder of the Job Helpers. The Job Helpers started with one mission, which is me about 10 years ago starting a job search process where I was getting rejections left and right. Even though I was working for a distinguished company at the time, I have an MBA and I have an undergraduate. I have all the educational qualifications, 15 plus years of experience in sales, marketing, operations. I've done a lot of different things. So I was kind of a mixed bag. So I didn't quite know how to go through a job search or effectively get interviews. So out of 800 plus applications I submitted, about 15 years ago, I got maybe 4 interviews. Out of those 4 interviews, one of those interviewers said this really interesting thing, which we chuckled together at the time. But I go home, I look at it from a standpoint of what did they actually say? So what they said was, Chewy, after reviewing your resume, I felt like you could take my job. Now, this can come across as more of a subtle chuckling point, but at the same time, what happened was I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm getting overqualified. Overqualifications was not a real thing that a lot of people talk about at the time, 15 years ago or so, because it was more of a high hand holding, or a handshake process. So when I started the business, I was helping people. It wasn't really formed as a business at first, but I was just helping people to revamp their resumes and their pitch. I ended up helping one of my buddies to get into Bobcat for a mechanical engineering role. And I was like, okay, if I could help someone in mechanical engineering, what else can I do? So I started helping people in technology, my buddies at Microsoft, and then I started helping other people. So a lot of people didn't realize that even then there was a system called the applicant tracking system. This system was not very sophisticated. It was just keywords. And when I told everyone about these keywords and how you want to position, and it's not so much that the person who is getting hired is not the person who more likely is the person who has the most amount of information or most extensive information on paper. It was the person who was the most relevant for the role. And how did you figure out relevance? I mean, the job description can have about 1,000 words. That's like 2 pages worth of content. So you cannot completely identify what kind of keywords or what kind of information to include on a resume these days. And that kind of struggle is still there, because a lot of people do struggle with getting interviews or getting past those interviews. So today's session is going to be focused on, so much so, on the AI interviews, but we'll touch base on how the job search works in 2026. So welcome and thank you for coming in. At the Job Helpers, we have helped over 100,000 job seekers. And as a service, our first thing is we would give you a guarantee of 4 interviews for every 10 jobs, which is quite a lot. So if you're not getting that kind of traction, you might want to talk to someone like me. We do have a free career assessment, which means we're not going to charge you anything. We want to hear you out and then also help you as much as we can, because if you can do it yourself, all power to you, right? So I'll give you feedback. I'll tell you the honest truth, how that resume looks like. As someone like me, I have done over 1 million of these sessions, free consult sessions, talking through people's careers and then helping them position and reposition themselves, and then kind of look at ATS keywords and interviews and so on and so forth. So I do have a distinguished guest, Hasi. Thank you, Hasi, for joining. I'll have you introduce yourself and talk through what you have learned through the Job Helpers experience and also working in leadership.
Thank you so much, Chewy. So, like Chewy said, I have over 20 years of experience in the industry, out of which about 15 years have been in leadership roles. So, over the years, I've personally worked with more than 10,000 professionals, helping them build confidence, structure their answers, how they need to articulate answers, and successfully navigate the interview process, right? So, including today's AI-powered interviews. So one of the biggest things that we've seen recently is that the hiring process has dramatically changed because of the AI technology. And that's exactly what we are going to break down today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hasi. Let's go dive into our agenda items for today. Well, I do see some of you answering questions saying, oh, I have not faced AI in the interview process yet. Or Shiva saying, hey, I have faced an interview with AI infused into it, some shape or form. And then there's quite a few. So we would say, okay, some of you, 50% maybe, have seen that AI interview come through, and some of you might have not. So it all also depends on the trade, the profession that you're in as well, or the industry, or the specific titles that you're applying to. So say, for instance, when I was interviewing at Microsoft, a lot of those roles were already being vetted, like the top candidates were vetted by IT or AI. I mean, not at that time, they were not calling it AI, but it was more of a data processing component. So if you're going into more of a technical interview, or if you're interviewing for a company like Anthropic, more likely you're going to find those AI interviews in play. If you're going into a smaller organization or more of a mom-pop shop situation, more likely you're not going to find that the AI interviews coming through. But you never know, because smaller companies, if they have the growth that they want, and then also if they do have that knack for hiring people all the time consistently, more likely they'll add that into the process. So today's session, we'll talk about the reality of modern hiring, and then what AI is looking for specifically. Most of you might be confused where you're saying things. I mean, a lot of people I talk to, a lot of job seekers say, oh, I was not really comfortable with that AI interview because there was no actual person in the interview. Or I had this interview, but it was kind of interesting because I felt like it was hallucinating, or it wasn't really the type of questions I normally get. So we'll talk through what AI is looking for, and then how strong candidates will stand out with the stand of AI. And then also how to optimize your environment, structured answers that you could use during an AI interview, or even more of a face-to-face interview or hybrid situation. And then AI interview techniques, small improvements that you can make for big results, and then how we can support professionals, of course, how we can moving forward. If you were to come and talk to someone, this is more of like a therapy for your career, because what we want to do is, this is a judgment-free zone. We're not going to really go through just like an interviewer would. We would down the road, but initially we want to kind of understand where you're at and where you want to go, what kind of answers you're giving, how comprehensive are they, do you have examples built in, what does your body language looks like, and then what kind of nonverbal cues, hand gestures, and then how excited you get on some of those answers. We want to kind of look at all of those to make sure that you're doing your best. So before we start with our presentation, let's ask everyone another question. Now, for the previous question, how many of you have gone through an AI interview? The house is divided. 50% of you are saying yes, 50% of you are saying no. So there's 2 or 3 interviews that you've gone through as well. So let's bring up our Q&A for today real quick, just to see what answers we can get from some of you who are listening in or watching this LinkedIn live session. So let's go ahead and put our Q&A in to see what kind of answers some of you who have gone through interviews can give the other side who have not gone through those specific interviews. Now, one of the questions that we get is, what is an AI interview? Well, an AI interview is more of, as you know, artificial intelligence to evaluate a candidate's responses. So either through video, text, voice, through those interactions typically at this point in time. So it could be pre-recorded or could be done in real time. With AI analytics happening on the back end, identifying speech, language, tone, and behavior. So it's assessing for the skills that you bring to the table and the right fit. So in 2026, roughly around 43% of all companies in the US have used some sort of shape or form of AI in their interview process. 43% is a pretty big number if you're looking at. So that's why the house is divided here in these answers as well, where some of you have seen AI interviews, some of you have not. So 43% is what you're looking at for a metric for companies using AI in their interview process. So, and also AI interviews typically for a company helps them automate the screening process, reduce the biases, and then also accelerate the decision-making process. So it improves consistency across the board in the recruitment process, of course, and then it gives them a better volume of high-quality, top-quality candidates, specifically for remote hiring, because they cannot gauge certain things when you're doing a remote interview. So let's move on to our question. So the reality of modern hiring is 75% of resumes never reach an actual human, which is a bigger component that we discussed in our previous LinkedIn live session, which is, why is your resume not getting you responses? Why are you getting ghosted? Or why are you getting a lot of rejection messages saying, thanks for applying, but we've decided to go with someone else? Now, the initial screening process is also AI driven. So 75% of you never get a response back. So think of it this way. You apply to a job, and this question comes up a lot of times. Should I be applying right away as soon as a job becomes available? Or should I be applying at the end? Well, the answer is, it doesn't matter, because we have had situations where some of our customers have applied right away as soon as the position becomes available, they were within the first 100 candidates list. They have gotten interviews. And then there are certain occasions where we've had customers saying, oh, I was the 1,000th or 1,500th candidate. And they still accepted my application. And I was the person who got hired for that role. That has happened a couple of times as well when we talk to customers. So it doesn't really matter the timing of it, but what I would say is make it ATS optimized, make it AI optimized. If you're using an AI built resume, I would be careful because there's AI detection tools that are out there by employers who are deploying AI tools do have the ability to detect AI written resumes. So if you are not getting landing interviews, it's a great conversation you and I should be having, you and Hazi should be having, because that's where someone like us would come in and say, okay, here are the specifics that you need to improve on. Or if you go to a place like, if you want to check how much of AI is used on your resume, you can go to a website called ZeroGPT. You should be able to see how much of those, how much percentage-wise, how much your resume has AI-built content in it. So if you're not using AI for your resume building process, you're on the safe zone, because we get a lot of people who are telling us, I didn't use AI, but I'm getting interviews. That's kind of a common thing nowadays, and which is a good thing. But when I talk to some people who use AI, they're like, I'm not getting anything. The reason why is because a system like Claude or a system like ChatGPT or even other systems like Copilot can hallucinate, meaning it can throw in, because what it's doing is it's trying to give you an answer. So it's going to find more answers if it couldn't find the answer from the closest batch of data sets. So it might more likely go into the internet and look for keywords. So it's like more of almost like a Google search all of a sudden, because what we're recommending is use an actual HRIS system or system that has ATS parsing, not like a ChatGPT. Even though ChatGPT says these are the keywords, also on the bottom it says ChatGPT can make mistakes. So you want to go into a more of an accuracy component there. Double check, triple check. If you're running it through ChatGPT, also run it through Claude or run it through other systems, AI systems, to validate. If you're using like a jobpromax.com, a system that we created, that system is running on, the backend is running on an HRIS system, so you can validate that information. What I'm getting at is, if you're adding information thinking that this is going to help you, it might hurt you in the long run. Because if you're adding a lot of details into your resume, and if it's not relevant right away, it might not come up in a conversation. That means more likely that information should be brought into an interview. And then after you identify the body language of the interviewer and or the panel, then you can present that information. So it's so much going on in the hiring process that we look at, where what needs to go on a resume nowadays, what kind of information needs to be shared during the interview process. You want to kind of have a really good understanding of those two things. That's where the power comes, where if you're just using an AI system and saying, ChatGPT, look at this job description, and then modify my resume, you might not have that kind of traction like you used to maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, because employers are also using systems nowadays to identify those candidates who are using AI. It might come across as more of a less authentic way of you presenting to them. So they might think that this person is using too much AI or AI in the process. They didn't really build the resume. They're not putting in effort to be a good candidate, top candidate. So you might get removed. Or you might have added so many buzzwords, we call it keyword stuffing. If that were to happen, a lot of times it could happen naturally because you're trying to add everything under the sun for that specific position. More likely, you can get a rejection because they didn't read the content. So, Hazi, let's go ahead and add your input here.
Sure. So, Chumi, speaking of the reality of modern hiring, right? I have a few statistics that would actually blow your mind. Did you know that nearly 87% of the companies now use AI somewhere in their recruitment process, right? And almost 98% of the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 type of companies use ATS. And it's even more important as to why we run through the ATS and get through the first stage of the interview, which is passing the ATS. And overall, globally, there are 67% of the recruiters now use AI tools to assist with the hiring. I mean, these kind of tools help the companies screen thousands of resumes. As you know, the job market is very demanding, as in terms of the jobs as well as the candidates out there. So they help thousands of people to screen the resumes, schedule interviews, as well as analyze the candidates' responses. So, in fact, AI-powered hiring tools can reduce time to hire by 33%. So that's a statistics that we have in 2026, Julie.
Thank you, Hazi. And what does AI look for, Hazi?
I would say, see, usually, actually, AI would look for tools and patterns, I would say, right? Keyword alignment with the job description, measurable accomplishments, relevant skills, expertise, and experience, and of course, clarity and structure of communication, right? So, modern hiring kind of algorithms are not just for job titles, they analyze skills, they analyze the impact and relevance. For example, instead of just seeing that someone was a project manager, the AI is looking for statements like managed projects worth of 2 million, reduced the operational cost by 25%, led a team of 15 engineers. So numbers help AI systems understand the impact quickly, and that's why strong candidates always lead with the metrics and the results.
Thank you, Hazi. And let's talk a little bit about this right here. Why AI, what AI is looking for. Now, AI is looking for specific keywords, phrases, topics, lingo, verbiage, competencies, years of experience, achievements, or the type of details on the resume building or resume side of things. 75% of applications come through and get a rejection message saying, thanks for applying, but we've decided to go with someone else. And then maybe another 35 people get selected for those interviews. And what that means is out of those 35 people, more likely a recruiter or the AI system is shortlisting candidates. So it's looking for a direct match from the resume into the job description to see what kind of good matching, over 80% of matching looks like. And then also, when you're going into the interview, you do want to read up the job description for sure, because a lot of those AI systems will have this job description as the baseline. So if you're bringing up certain specific words out of the job description, like cross-functional collaboration, team collaboration efforts, working with certain matrix teams, working on certain KPI values or timeline details, that would be sufficient, I would say, to pass through the interview process with the AI specifically. It'll also help the interviewer get an idea and some insight into more of the micro details that they're looking for during the process. And also, when you're communicating, you want to have more of a structured process where you're starting with discussing certain type of deliverables, talking through certain measurables, outcomes, goals, timelines, KPIs, timeline deadline management experience. You're talking through people who are involved in the process, maybe direct people who are directly involved, monthly, weekly, quarterly, talking through certain processes, talking through certain technologies. Like if you're in sales, a lot of them would ask you for knowledge in Salesforce. Now, when I get customers, when I ask them questions, a lot of them don't even talk about Salesforce as a solution that they used. When you're using words like Salesforce or Jira in a technical interview for project management, for instance, or working with Kanban, or working with Agile, or working with certain type of maybe accounting standards like that. That would help them to say, oh, this person understands the process really well, and then also go into maybe 2 or 3 layers as an answer. So then that way it confirms in their mind that you're a credible source. You know what you're talking about. But some of you have this tendency, including myself sometimes, where I repeat myself over and over again. You have to watch for that. And then saying words like, and these filler words have a big impact nowadays, because previously, when you can get through an interview, actual person, because that person just didn't care too much for the filler words, because they're also going to make mistakes. They know that. But when it comes to filler words with AI, and if the interviewer, the person who is actually looking at the content, say, for an instance, if you go through a voice activated interview, you go through the interview, you answer some questions, or maybe once you're done with the questions and the answers, they get a script. And how many of you are using Fireflies here? Simple yes or no. Maybe you can comment. How many of you are using Fireflies AI for your note taking? Think in those lines. Fireflies AI is helping an active conversation turn it into a note, right? So the same process can follow in an interview process where the interviewer is asking you these standard questions and you're answering in front of a screen, and then the AI is converting it into a text. So if you have words like or then more of that content will be filler. So when they're reading through the text, they might see those words, and then they might get distracted, or they might feel like this person is not confident. So those are some of the things to watch for when you're going through an AI interview, especially. Measurable results. When you're discussing measurable results, be specific. Not everyone is doing sales, don't have goals or results. Maybe you're not the top contributor of the company. That's okay. You just need to showcase on what your strengths are, which is what kind of measurements, what kind of one-on-ones did you do? Did you win any awards? Maybe you reduced the costs or time in the process. Or maybe you managed to automate or manage to manage the budget, for an instance. Or maybe you were influencing the decision maker in budget type decisions. All of that can roll into the interview process. All of that could roll into the resume, because those are good things, especially if you're in leadership, would come up, and you want to make sure that those questions are answered in a specific situation, task, action, result, outcome, timeline sort of type of process. And then job description alignment. Very important. As I mentioned, study the job description. Before you go to sleep that one day, before the interview, read through the job description. Use the job description as more of I call it more of a Q&A tool, meaning you turn the job description into a Q&A, meaning every sentence that you're reading through, you're going to put a question mark at the end and say, okay, can I give an answer, solid answer to this question if they were to ask you as a question? Like, say, for an instance, let me convert this for you for easy understanding. If there's a specific sentence talking through process, ask yourself, what kind of processes were you involved in? What kind of timelines? What kind of stakeholders? What kind of specific milestones were achieved? Now, that would be an answer that you can give them. Make sure that the answers are not so lengthy. You want to have a really good start, have a solid middle, and then a strong ending. So what that really means is we recommend our customers to go with the 3 to 5 answer response time, because every answer, you're going to lose them if you're spending more time than that. If you're going less than that, they might feel like you're not comfortable enough, or you're not skilled enough, you're not experienced enough. So too short is not good, too long is not good either. So, and then also consistency in the application process. consistency can come from a few ways. You're doing things that helps the organization. So what that means is you're looking at the company's value prop, mission, vision statements to get more of an idea. So every company you're going into, you have a pretty good deep dive that you've done. You know who are their customers. You know what kind of reviews that they've received. You have gone through their Glassdoor ratings, which is very important that we teach. Because Glassdoor ratings, every company has a Glassdoor rating. So if you go through the Glassdoor ratings, employees or ex-employees will come there and then give their 2 cents, maybe anonymous. So look through those. Don't just kind of have a negative attitude about it. Just try to understand and learn. What you're doing is learning. But one of the important things I learned during an interview is that I went through the person's company's website and then critiqued it. Big mistake. I will never do that mistake again, because what happened was they were just unenthused. They were feeling uneasy. They said, "Oh, yeah, I know. We need to rework our website. We've been working on it." That's all they said. But that kind of added layer of this person is a know-it-all, or this person haven't even worked a day with our company, but they're already telling me what to do. So stay away from those situations for sure. So let's move on to our next slide. Hazy, maybe you can talk through how strong candidates stand out, because you do work with a lot of people.
Sure. So, Shri, out of all the clients that I've worked with, the ones that have been successful enough to land, typically they typically do 5 things perfectly, right? First, they would ensure that your resume and the cover letter would align with the job description. So like Chui just described, go through the JD, look through the skills, the expertise, and that's like the first step, right? Because all AI systems would compare your resume directly with the job description. And that is how you've been given a score in terms of how compatible your skills are as against the job description, right? So if the skills match, then you move forward. The second that they do is they lead with metrics. So statements like, I have been able to increase the revenue by 10%. Statements like, I've reduced the cost by improving efficiency. And then improving efficiency by 10%. Quality improvement was increased from 67% to 97%. So these are very powerful signals. Third would be, like strong candidates tell a very professional, very clear story. So your career should make sense. The progression, the skills, the impact, right? You need to be able to articulate all of these very well. And the fourth would be to structure your answers clearly. This is extremely important for AI interviews. They do see from where you start, what you've been doing, the initiatives you've taken, and then the end results, right? So, and the last but not the least, it would be practice relentlessly. Confidence and clarity can make a huge difference in the AI interviews. So I would urge everyone to keep practicing, and then go in front of a mirror, ask the questions, and just rehearse, practice. That would be how you can sort of stand tall as against the all other candidates.
Thank you, Hazy. And let's also talk about optimizing your environment, which is very important, because a lot of candidates, when they get an interview, they are not ready. They're not in the right headspace. They don't feel confident. They haven't had their breakfast or coffee or some. They just look unprepared, or they haven't combed their hair sometimes, if that's what you do normally. Just needs to be put together correctly or in a more comprehensive manner, right? So it's not just the looks, but let's talk about other components, like all these things that we have laid out here. Good lighting, stable internet, quiet background, professional attire, on-camera presence? Hazi.
Sure. So, as we were discussing, Chui, many interviews are now conducted through video platforms or AI interview software, right? So, in these cases, your environment matter more than you think. AI systems would analyze your facial expressions, your tone of voice, how you maintain your eye contact, clarity of your communication. So, to perform well, make sure you have a very quiet environment, use good lighting. Preferably the light should come from in front of you and not from behind you, right? Dress professionally, even if it's an AI interview, even if it's a remote interview, you carrying yourself, it's a job interview. Some they say mirroring the color of the organization would create an instant connection, but failing which dark blue, royal blue is considered to be a very professional color. So dress professionally, even if the interview is virtual, and then maintain good posture and positive body language. Use of your hands, be very careful. Please go ahead and use your hands when you want to emphasize something, when you want to elaborate something. So these very small details can significantly improve your overall interview performance.
Thank you, Hazi. And let's kind of go through structured answers and talk through that a little bit. Now, structured answers, what are they? How does someone going through the interview process in 2026? And these interviews could be, so initially, a lot of times, I'm going to tell you this upfront. AI interviews, AI is not as sophisticated as many people think it is yet. It has come a long ways, yes. But when it comes to AI interviews, it can hallucinate, it can have issues in terms of video quality and all these other things as well. So when it comes to AI interviews, you're going to get those AI interviews up front, more likely during the initial screening phase, just like an ATS screening process. You would have that AI interviewer, or maybe it can come across as a more of a Q&A format where you're answering some of those questions, right? And then also it can come across as maybe down the road to help the hiring manager pick the top maybe 5 candidates. But that would come in a little later. So there could be the recruiter interview that happens, the hiring manager interview that happens, and then also panel interview that you'll be doing with maybe a team, the direct team that you're going to be working with, or either with the department heads who are you're going to be working with directly. And then there's also going to be that final stage with the final decision maker or makers. So Hazi, let's go through the structured answers, why structured answers matter. And then why do we recommend the STAR technique?
Absolutely. So, Chui, as all of you know here, there are different types of questions, very especially AI-based interviews, right? There are probing questions, there are hypothetical questions, behavioral questions, as well as result-oriented questions. Now, for both behavioral and hypothetical questions, one of the most powerful ways that you can relate, you can answer the interview questions is by following the STAR technique. Situation, task, action, and the results, right? So when answering questions, structure your responses. Start by briefly explaining the situation, relate the scene, and then you want to describe the task that you've been assigned to do or the responsibility that you had to do. Next, I want you to sort of spend maybe about 10 to 15 more seconds explaining, elaborating the actions you took, the initiatives you've taken, and then finally highlight the results and the impact. So AI interview platforms actually perform better when your answers follow a very clear structure, right? It kind of helps the system identify problem solving ability, leadership, measurable outcomes, and then if it's especially if it's a screening or if it's an AI interview for like maybe 10 to 15 minutes, you can even have something like a CAR model, that's circumstances, actions, and results. While I do encourage all of you to adapt to the STAR technique, CAR is also a very effective interview technique that you can use, especially for AI. So please just follow the STAR or the CAR, depending on the situation, depending on the duration of the AI interview.
And CAR means, one more time, what does that mean? Circumstance, action.
Action and results. So this method actually helps you kind of stay focused, Chewy, and then avoid rambling, right? Most of the time, some of the challenges that the customers tell me, the clients tell me is, Hasi, it's so hard for me to remember all of this. Like first elaborating the situation and then going on with the task and then the actions and then the results, right? So for people like that, and also for AI screening, a CAR would be a very effective method. That's circumstance, actions, and then results.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And before we start this slide, let's post a question to our audience today. So let's bring up a question that we can answer for you. If we can bring up a question, what does AI evaluate? Is it behavioral tendencies, technical skills, job fit? What are your thoughts, Hazi?
I would say all of it, Chewy, because
it.
first and foremost, yes. Through the ATS, they would evaluate the job fit, right? Like I said, they would directly compare your skills, your capabilities, experience, and expertise with the job description.
Gotcha.
And then you have something like areas of expertise or your core competencies. That is where you can, include your technical skills, your leadership skills, your transferable skills, soft skills. All of them matter. And then, of course, your behavioral tendencies as well.
Yeah. So there's a combination of behavioral tendencies, technical skills, and job fit. So if you're a good fit. Okay. Yeah. So all of the three matter. Let's bring up another question. Let's bring up another question. Here's another question that we have been getting a lot. So let's put up another question in here. And thank you for responding. All of the above is the answer to that question of what does AI look for? Let's have another question come up. What are type of AI interviews? One-way interviews, AI-led interviews, live AI-assisted interviews. Hazi, maybe you have an answer to this.
I would say all of the above, Stu. More often than not, I get a lot of clients, they Hasi, I have a recording, and then that would prompt me to, sort of answer the other questions. So I would say there are some companies who have already implemented live AI-assisted interviews, and then there are AI-led interviews as well as one-way interviews where they say, introduce yourself, and then they would probably ask you a question in terms of your behavioral question, in terms of give me an example or talk to me about a situation, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, I would say all three is something that we see in our tree.
Thank you. So let's dive in on AI interviews. First step is to analyze the job description with AI. So, and at the Job Helpers, we don't use AI to build our resumes because we know that Zero GPT and other tools are a thing. We know that employers are constantly using AI to detect AI written resumes. So what we do is we use AI as more of a research tool. Like when we're looking at the job description, we're not just going to come up with answers saying, oh, this would be the best answer for you. We would do the research, we would ask AI, we would go through several different maybe best answers that other people, top candidates have come up with, or maybe clever ways to answer some of those questions. So what we're doing at the Job Helpers is if I were to go through an AI tech interview step by step with a client, I would focus on, okay, let's analyze, or job seeker, someone looking for a job, need more practice, have not interviewed in a while. Or maybe they've been going into interview after interview, but not really sure where things are heading. Some of them will doze off at the end. You might just get ghosted at the end. You might have seen those situations happen. That happens a lot of times because of how you position yourself, because you have done the hard work to get to an interview. Now it's your chance to close the interview correctly, comprehensively, and in a winning um, win in your build, right? So what that really means is when you're doing interviews in general, maybe they're AI or non-AI or maybe a hybrid model, you do want to focus on these techniques that we follow nowadays. These are specific to AI, but you can also use these techniques for your regular interviews as well. So step one is when we work with someone, we would come up with some questions that they would get based off of the job description, based off of older job description that they have posted as the company, or maybe competitor job descriptions. We're looking at all of the above because AI can process a lot. Not just looking at one job description, because we want to know what kind of common details that across the board similar type of employers or competitors are asking, because you can get thrown off if that question comes up. So what we're doing first is to kind of build out a list of questions. So then that way we can use those questions to your advantage. And by asking those questions, we get a pretty good grip of what's happening in your head. At the same time, how you're structuring your answers so we can help. And then we're formulating questions. So when we're doing our interview coaching, what we focus on is, okay, let's do an exercise where we're building star-based responses or coming up with an explanation or an example that would be more comprehensive to that question. So then that way they feel more comfortable talking to you, and then also continuing the discussion. And then also practicing high pressure answer drills. So what that means is we'll put you on the spot. We'll give you a few questions and then ask you two or three questions in the middle that you've never been tested, just to see how you would work on your feet, right? So that would help you to kind of not so much get startled, but also to kind of be on top of your game. How would you think? How would you reason in your head? How much time are you taking to answer a question that you're not really comfortable with? So then that way, that helps you to kind of be on the spot and then also come up with some standard answers you can think of when a question like that comes up that you've never received in the past. And then also we focus on AI skills and also how the AI is looking for what. Now, AI can detect body language nowadays because how you move, how confident you are, how much information you're presenting, and then whether that information is authentic. They'll be able to tell in some interviews. So you want to be cognizant of those scenarios as well, whether your answer is refined enough or whether that answer is comprehensive, whether the answer has some authentic value to it. Are you talking about situation? The specific situation, giving them an explanation, or are you talking in more general terms? Sometimes you do have to talk in general terms. When it comes to a senior leader interview, more likely, like the final decision makers don't need to know the specific situation, task, action, result a lot of times. What they would like to know is overall, what have you done in a high level and a high stake environment? What kind of value you provided? So you can couple up a few different data points or a few different examples, few different results, and then mimic that answer to get the best out of it. So then that way you're not just talking about one specific scenario. You're talking about, hey, we had 500 patient beds, or we had this many, this was our unit, or maybe 24,000 square feet facility, whatever that is. Now you're giving them numbers that would be a compilation of everything. Maybe 2,500 square feet, but then had 10 facilities. So then you're saying 25,000 or something to that matter, right? So what you're doing is kind of really helping them gauge what kind of value prop you bring to the table. And then also staying updated on hiring trends. Now, we appreciate you coming to this LinkedIn Live session. We're going to try to do a LinkedIn Live every month. So then that way we can educate and we can get more insights from everyone who is applying to jobs. Also, my calendar is always open. You can schedule some time. We could talk about AI interviews. We could talk about your resume. If you're not getting interviews, landing interviews, we guarantee 4 out of 10. Talk to us. You don't have to sign up for a service. I'll tell you what to do. If you can execute it correctly, great, you'll get results either way. So, and that's what we care so much about, because we want to make sure that you're getting value out of our conversation. And that's kind of what it boils down to. Now, we have shared a link on this website, on our website. At the same time, if you go to thejobhelpers.com, you can book time with me, or you can scan the QR code on the top of this screen and you'll be able to book time with us as well. It's confidential, it's complimentary. At the same time, we'll make it more thought-provoking. So then that way you're thinking instead of doing all the time. Because applying to 2,000 jobs, I talked to someone 2 days ago, said apply to 2,000 jobs. I'm like, oh my gosh, within a year. So 2,000 jobs and got 2 interviews. I'm like, there's clearly an issue, right? So things like that, don't just let things fester. Don't just let it go and then just like continue to apply without changing strategy. Talk to someone like us. It's like your sickness is getting worse and worse without going to a doctor. Same process here. Talk to someone. Talk to someone like me who has seen it, who has gone through the process myself, and then also going through helping a lot of people, at least 350 customers per month. So let's kind of move on to our next slide, because we're kind of coming up at the to the end of the hour. I wanted to kind of have Hazi take this small improvements, big results.
Sure,
Because
Shri.
she is doing so many interviews. I wanted to make sure, or interview coaching sessions, mock interviews. So I want to help our audience understand what you call small improvements, big results.
Sure, Shri. So the biggest difference between candidates who succeed and those who struggle often comes down to very small improvements, right? For example, a resume that is properly ATS optimized can dramatically increase visibility. And Shri, do you know that the research have proven that 9 to 15% of the candidates who have quantified accomplishments, who have put in AI skills, have a higher chance of getting interviews, right? So a resume that is properly ATS optimized, like I said, can dramatically increase the visibility. Adding quantified achievements make your experience more compelling. And then practicing interviews, of course, improves clarity, improves confidence. In terms of, just have some generic common questions like leadership challenges you've had, conflict resolution, cross-functional collaborations, experiences, examples, project success stories. Like, you can just think of high pressure interview drills and then keep practicing, right? So with regard to building a strong LinkedIn profile can improve your recruiter visibility, and then having the right keywords on your LinkedIn content. As you know, LinkedIn is driven by SEO, right? It's a search engine optimization. So we actually at the Job Helpers would help you create the right content so that your visibility would be improved, increased, and then small adjustments in these areas can make a huge difference in your job search results as well as navigating through interviews.
And to add to that, what I would focus on also is a couple things. Resume is super important. I cannot tell you how important that is. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, it's not a resume issue and I'm not getting interviews. I guarantee you it's a resume issue. Either you're getting overqualified or underqualified. That's the issue. That doesn't mean that you don't have experience. That just means that you're telling them too much or too little of certain things that are relevant and important. Even though you used an AI system, it didn't do a good enough job to detect and identify and provide comprehensive details. You only get 35 sentences for a 2-page resume, 1,000 words. Out of those, at least 20 sentences, when we create a resume, we would look for quantitative details to add. The reason why is because then throughout the resume, you're showing them those quantitative details like deliverables, measurables, outcomes, goals, timelines, certain people numbers, process improvement numbers, and other things, cost reduction metrics and things. And then also when it comes to an interview, they could ask you questions like, how much how much are you looking for, or how much money you want to make, or some other question that is related to pay. A lot of times, a lot of the candidates will stutter and say, "Oh, things like, I'm not sure. What are you offering?" So that is not the best way to approach a question like that. Where someone like me, I would say, "Okay, let's figure out how much you're worth based off of the experience you have, transferable experience you bring to the table, the match that you are, at the same time looking at other people, like say Glassdoor, for instance, has salary that is listed. Or if you're going to Job Pro Max, every job posting that you're seeing on jobpromax.com has a pay range. If you're adding it into the tracker, it'll tell you how much pay you should be averaging around. So having that understanding by looking at an average of either what the employer is offering or what candidates are asking for is a good starting point for sure. Then you can reference it saying, hey, according to Glassdoor, in my location in New York, for someone who has 15 years of experience, this is where the average is going to be, 250 range. 250 would be something that other candidates are getting as a pay. So what I would like to do is I would like to have a range, and if it's on the higher range, I'd be happy to discuss. And give them a range is always a good way to kind of get around that, and then ask them the question, what are you thinking? Or what's offered? Is that compatible with me? So instead of saying, what are you offering? You want to kind of give them some information up front, or a career gap, or why haven't you worked in a while? Those questions can come up a lot of times. You just need to be diplomatic. You just have to be professional. You have to have a positive mindset. You cannot go in and say, oh, the company just went through a layoff. That's not a good enough answer. Because if the company went through a layoff, you might be thinking, oh, that's a good answer because the whole team got laid off. But when for the employer, they're thinking, oh, the company went downhill. So, and you were part of it. You were in a sinking ship, right? So you want to come up with more of a comprehensive answer in that situation, because then they feel more compelled or feel more enticed to have a conversation again. It's like going on a date and how you want to structure your camping trip. Your wife might not really care to go fishing with you, but you do. So you're still going on a camping trip. That's how you're going to present yourself. The reason why is because fishing is an after activity versus the entire activity, right? I mean, if she loves fishing, take her fishing. But what I'm saying is, it just comes down to how you present yourself, what you say to the employers. And that has a lot of bearing in how well the interview can go, or how not so well the interview can go. So we talked a little bit about the Job Helpers, Job Pro Max. The Job Helpers is our concierge hand-holding type of service, where we would help you all the way. If it's interview coaching, resume building, applying to jobs, we do it all. And salary negotiation coaching, we do it all. And then Job Pro Max side, it's our AI-powered job search platform where there's jobs, over 3 million jobs in there, and then also gives you an ATS score, resume optimization happens there. Now, we don't recommend our resume builder tool to our own customers. Why? Because of AI detecting AI. Now, when we first created Job Pro Max, we were pretty proud with AI building resumes, but then soon realized, okay, we have to take a step back. There's still value in someone actually building a resume. Why? Because that person can go through a large number of data sets or keywords and then decide what kind of information is matching by looking at multiple job postings instead of looking at every job and try to customize. Because when you're trying to customize, the resume is going to change a lot. So that'll create more issues because now the authenticity drops. At the same time, the content will not have a specific meaning or the best way it could be presented. So those are the reasons why we recommend talking to us. And then we'll pick and come up with a plan for you. And schedule again, you can schedule a discovery session with us, a career discovery session. If you click on that QR code, thank you, you'll be able to book that time today with us. I have availability this afternoon, and also I'm pretty sure Hazi can have that same discussion. Whoever you pick, we'll do our best. We'll make sure that your time is worth the while. So, one final thought. Any questions for us? I know that we're 1 minute over, but if you do have questions, now is the time to post those questions into your comment section on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to answer. Also, Hazi can chime in and answer those questions for you as well. Feel free. We'll keep this live session open for maybe 2 more minutes. Add your questions in. If you have specific questions, you can definitely click on that or take a picture on that QR code that you're seeing on the screen and book some time with us. We would love to help you and walk you through. And also, we'll talk about the stage that you're in your job search and help you accordingly. If you're not going through interviews, what's the point of talking about AI interviews? Let's talk about how you can get there. If you're going through interviews, what's the point of talking specifically about a resume? Let's talk about more of the interview coaching or things that you could say or not say during the interviews. So we'll work accordingly and help you in any stage of that process. So here's our contact details. You can book time with us. Would love to chat with you. At the very least, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're finding me on LinkedIn, if you're not already connected, please connect with me. I have 17,000 plus followers, 16,000 plus connections. The reason why I say that is because you can easily go into my first degree connections and then find recruiters or HR people or senior level people or a lot of high-powered individuals who have either received a service, have talked to me. Those people, if you drop my name and say, hey, I met Chewy at a LinkedIn Live conference or a LinkedIn Live session, they will positively respond. All you need is that warm introduction and a connection. So feel free to drop my name. Happy to make a referral any time of the day. Let me know if you have any other thoughts. Would love to chat with you. Again, QR code is listed on the top, or you could go to our website, thejobhelpers.com, and book some time with either myself or Hazi. Hazi, final thoughts.
Chewy, I think we have a question here, right? There is a question. What if there are reasons you're willing to get back into the job market for less than your worth? Because you need to build up a resume with recent experience. So this actually if this comes up in an interview, I would say my advice is to frame it positively and strategically, right? Not as I need a job or I'm willing to take less. So employers typically want to hear value. They want to see how motivated you are and long-term fit, not desperation, right? So what you want to say is, maybe you can rephrase the answer as, I'm primarily focused on finding the right opportunity where I can contribute and build momentum again. Whilst compensation is always a factor, my priority right now is joining a strong team where I can deliver results, rebuild recent experience, and create long-term value. I'm confident that once I demonstrate my impact, compensation will naturally follow. You can be diplomatic and answer a question like that.
Wow. Great answer, Hazi. I love it. I think that's a great way to end our session. Thank you so much for joining. Again, you can book some time with us for a complimentary session, and feel free to use that QR code. Would love to chat with you, and for whatever stage you're in your job search, we will not judge. We will just give you more focused, refined feedback. I can tell you this right now. I will not just pitch a service without knowing if there's a need or not. So that's kind of my way of doing it. And you can always book time with us first, and then that way we can kind of talk through your career. maybe you'll walk away with a lot of good insight, and then you'll deploy or execute it yourself. That's not a big issue at all. And you can always refer others who are struggling. Feel free to have them connect with me on LinkedIn or CC me on an email. My email is chewy@thejobhelpers or hazi@thejobhelpers. You can email us, and you can send any referrals. Whoever is struggling during a job search, we would love to chat with them and look at their resume, give them pointers, feedback, and also do a quick ATS check and a grammar check. So then that way they're on their way, they know what they're worth and what they can yield out of a job search in 2026. And also, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not connected to me. If you are, you can always send me a message. Talk soon. Have a wonderful, blessed week, everyone. And thank you for joining.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.